Hello, I'm Liam Fogarty. Way back in 1830, Liverpool became one of the 2 points along the world's first passenger rail route between Liverpool and Manchester. But now, all these years on, the city and its city region could be about to lose out on the biggest investment in railways in a century, the High Speed 2 project. One man who hopes that that won't happen has joined me, and he's my guest today. He's Andrew Morris from a campaign called 20 Miles More. You're very welcome.
Hi.
Which 20 miles are we talking about?
We're talking about the 20 miles that is the distance from Lime Street to the proposed High Speed 2 rail route that runs up around the Croft interchange area.
And at the moment, Liverpool is kind of out in the cold, in a bit of a cul-de-sac, because this route, this HS2 route, is pointing towards Manchester.
Yeah, that's precisely the issue for Liverpool. There's no new infrastructure proposed for the city region. Our trains come off the high-speed network either at Lichfield down in Staffordshire or Crewe. And in fact, they're going to spend 51% of their time on the old network, clogging up that old network so we can't put extra freight on it and we can't put new passenger services for our commuters to the east of Liverpool.
We talk about high speed.
Yes.
What sort of trains are we talking about? What sort of speeds are we talking about?
So we're talking at about a top speed of around 360 kilometers per hour. That's pretty fast. It's faster than is used in the rest of Europe, so it's a bit of a kind of a leapfrog, really, technology-wise.
So you need a brand new track.
Yes, so they won't fit under, these new trains won't fit under the bridges, they won't fit at the platforms, they won't fit in the stations. So you need new track, you need completely new infrastructure to fit these new trains.
And at the moment, the plan is to send one of these new high-speed routes to Birmingham, phase 1.
Yep.
And then it will kind of divide in a Y shape,
yes,
heading off to Manchester and to Leeds,
yes,
but not to Liverpool.
Not to Liverpool.
When you saw the government's proposals, what was your first reaction?
Well, I was kind of, as a passionate Liverpudlian, I was shocked by it, really, because it didn't match what I knew about the city region, the changes that had happened in the city region, the renaissance that was occurring with a fastest growing tourism economy, fastest growing jobs growth since the recession, fastest growing economy of all the core cities. Yet the government wasn't nurturing that growth. They were kind of casting us aside as an inconvenient fact, really.
Well, in the original document, I think Liverpool was mentioned. You know, we got a name check,
yeah,
but that was it.
Yeah, we were considered an other intermediate market, and essentially my view on where this stems from is the consultants were given the task of connecting London to Birmingham, Leeds and Manchester. That's exactly what they did. They weren't asked to connect Liverpool. No matter what the benefits were of connecting Liverpool, there was additional costs, and they didn't want to do that.
This is an enormously expensive scheme. The 2 phases are going to cost probably about £50 billion.
Yeah.
Can you understand why the government would rather not lash out on what it would regard as a kind of spur off to spend another 2, 3, 4 billion?
Well, our estimates put that at less than 2 billion. We're talking about 1.5 to 1.9 billion. And that's if we are looking at an all singing, all dancing new infrastructure. There are opportunities in Liverpool to kind of maybe get that even lower through reusing old infrastructure. And everywhere is going to be on a spur. It's nothing new for Manchester, it's nothing new for Leeds, it's nothing new for even Birmingham. It doesn't run through Birmingham, it goes around the side of Birmingham. So Liverpool wouldn't be in a unique position. It's no more difficult to connect to than other cities. In fact, easier than, say, Manchester. And the government is leaving a massive amount of benefit on the table by ignoring Liverpool. If you're going to build it, then why not spend that billion or so on Liverpool rather than spend it on tunnelling through the Chilterns, which provides no economic benefit?
Now, you and I will remember the time when it took the best part of 3 hours to get to Euston from Liverpool. Now you can do it in just over 2.
Yeah.
Even if the current proposals, which you think don't really do Liverpool justice, if they're implemented, it will take about 1.5 hours. We're doing pretty well. Why do we need to spend additional money on another route to chop another 20 minutes off?
In 1830, Liverpool built the world's first intercity railway. Liverpool paid for it, Liverpool invented it. That technology, that whole kind of revolution that sparked the whole kind of modern era started in Liverpool. In 1830, we were the world's most well-connected city. If we flash forward to 2030, when HS2 starts to come online, we're going to be the least connected city in a major city in the UK. Now if that happens and the government doesn't invest in Liverpool, why should any private business?
And the comparisons that we usually make are with Manchester. They will have at least one new station near Piccadilly, maybe two, with one at the airport. It'll take, about half an hour less to get to London from Manchester than here. Mm-hmm. What are the implications for the Liverpool economy, for Liverpool's kind of sense of itself, if that's the case?
Well, I think we have to look at HS2's own economics figures to look at what the impact is. And they commissioned KPMG to do a regional impact study. That shows that over the 60-year period, Liverpool could lose out by its economy by 1.9 billion over that period. Chester could lose out by 1 billion. Warrington could lose out by 0.6 billion. And essentially the reason why that is, even though we're connected, is that if businesses become more sensitive to being well connected, they'll migrate to those places that are connected. HS2 will become a magnet, and Manchester and Leeds and Birmingham will have very strong magnets. Liverpool will have a very weak magnet. And all of that growth that would occur in Liverpool will be sucked out to those other cities.
I looked at some of the papers that 20 Miles More has been putting out in the last few months. And one of the things which surprised me was that it looks like it's going to be harder to get from Liverpool to Birmingham. There is no high-speed connection from Liverpool to Birmingham in any of the plans that we've seen so far. What do you think of that?
I think it's an absolute disgrace. Everywhere else that's getting services via HS2 is connected to Birmingham. Birmingham takes forever to get to. It takes about as long to get to Birmingham as it does to get to London.
It's quicker to drive.
Yeah. It will not change with HS2. We're not even going to get a connection to Birmingham Interchange Station, which is on the outskirts of Birmingham, let alone central Birmingham. If we had that 20 more miles, we could be in Birmingham in about 43 minutes or so. A very, very quick connection for two great cities.
And the other thing that came out from some of the papers that you've produced is that even though you might double the frequency of trains from Liverpool to London, we're not necessarily going to have any more seats. How does that work?
Well, in the peak hours, we already have 2 trains per hour to London, from Liverpool to London and vice versa. On the 11-car Virgin trains, there are 589 seats. HS2 said there will be no more than 550 seats on their trains, and they're proposing 2 trains per hour throughout the day. So at those peak times, we will have fewer seats because we won't have any more trains, and those trains will have fewer seats.
Have you been on a Virgin train recently?
Yes, I have, and they're very cramped.
They're very cramped. And there's some talk that maybe the buffet car might have to go to make room for the extra capacity.
Yeah, so HS2 trains are 200 metres long. Virgin 11-car Pendolinos are about 260, 70 metres long. So how are you going to fit 550 seats in a train that is about, about 30% shorter? I can't see any buffet car. I can see it being even more cramped than it is at the moment.
And I mean, a lot of people are upset at how expensive it is to go by rail. The cost of tickets doesn't really figure either in your research or in the government's research. But isn't there a kind of feeling that, well, this will be a gold-plated service for people with, frankly, lots of money?
It could be viewed that way, but let's view it from a kind of a market basis. There will be, in Manchester, 3 times an hour, there will be a train with 1,100 seats on it. The government will not want to be sending empty trains up and down between Manchester and London. There will be very, very many low-cost tickets available between Leeds, Manchester and Birmingham and London, because the government needs to fill those seats to show that HS2 is a success. HS2 Limited's own kind of analysis of the trains to Liverpool show they will be the busiest trains on the network. They will be the most crowded. So there won't be cheap seats available, not in the volumes there are between those other cities. That's already the case with Liverpool because we suffer from having infrequent service, and because of that, we get a lot fewer discount seats.
This all sounds very depressing. After the break, Andrew, we'll find out maybe some of the positive things that an HS2 link to Liverpool might bring. Join us shortly. Welcome back. I'm Liam Fogarty and I'm talking about high-speed train travel between Liverpool and, well, somewhere. And I'm joined by Andrew Morris from the campaign 20 Miles More. Andrew, you want the new HS2 high-speed rail network to extend to Liverpool.
Yeah.
At the moment, that's not on the cards. It's not in the government's thinking. But let's talk about the principle of high-speed travel. If you go to France or Italy, Spain, you know, there are these lovely trains that zap around at high speeds. The criticism in the UK has always been that, oh, well, if you have quicker trains to London, you're going to suck people and wealth and money out of the great provincial cities into London. Is that something that is that a fear you share as well?
I think it's to a certain extent a well-founded fear that if we connect cities to London, there's going to be a flow towards London, but there's also a counterflow. And I think the distances involved will make it essential for any major city in the UK to be linked well to London. Nobody's going to argue to not be on the motorway network or to dig up the West Coast Main Line. If it's built, Liverpool needs to be on it. And I think actually the bigger risk and what the real jeopardy is for Liverpool is that if it isn't on the high-speed rail network, but all our other competitor cities like Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham are, then it's not London who we're going to lose out to, it's the other core cities.
But some critics have also said, do we really want to spend billions of pounds so that we can have London property prices, or so that we can kind of have enormous kind of commutes and Liverpool and Warrington and Chester become kind of dormitory towns for Greater London?
I don't think there's any risk for Liverpool being a dormitory town. Liverpool is one of the few cities in Britain that is a destination in its own right. It is internationally known, and it's the only city that outside of London is known across the world in any great way. And so we're never going to be a dormitory of London. I think we're going to be a great world city. In fact, the phrase world city was invented when Liverpool was talked about.
The railways, the passenger railways, were also invented in Liverpool.
Yep.
And what our Victorian ancestors did was that if they wanted to build something, they went out and borrowed the money or raised the money, and they went and built it. Is there any way that Liverpool could build a high-speed connection without the government?
Well, the high-speed rail connection couldn't be built without the government, because we'd need some acts of parliament to enable that, enable the building work. However, I think the city region needs to make an offer to the government. We've won the argument really about Liverpool needing to be connected. The stumbling block now is the fact that the budget is fixed, and the political realities make it very difficult for either of the major parties to expand that budget. What we need to do is to come up with an inventive way of part financing that link. The city region could offer some kind of tax increment financing, essentially looking at the increase in business in the city and how that could be the extra business rates and the extra kind of income from that could be offset against the cost of building the link.
So is that a bit like Crossrail in London, where
Yes.
the businesses along the Crossrail connection, which goes kind of east-west or northwest, southeast,
Yeah.
they pay a top-up on their business rates.
Essentially, it could be something similar where large businesses who are the ones who would greatly benefit from this may pay some kind of additional increment.
But you're well connected to the business community. Would they be up for that?
I think the future without being on HS2 is going to be very bleak for business in Liverpool. We're essentially going to be relegated to kind of the low-end tourism kind of sector. There's going to be very little future for professional services, for high-income, knowledge-based jobs growth. And I don't see there being any alternative than being on the network, so we have to do whatever it takes. Now, it may be that there are a number of different ways of doing it. It needn't be a kind of a levy on business rates.
Isn't it true that there's a pot of money in Brussels waiting for countries like the UK to spend it on big rail projects like this one? And if there is a pot of money, can we have some?
There is, and there are billions sitting in the EU at the moment looking for bids. And essentially, Europe has mapped out the high-speed rail network for the future. It's called TEN-T, T-E-N-T. Liverpool is on that map. Liverpool is a key node on one of the routes, along with Manchester, Birmingham and London. Leeds, Sheffield are not on that. HS2 need to fulfill their obligations as part of that European directive that is in law to connect Liverpool directly onto the high-speed rail network. If they were to do so, there would be match funding available from Europe to pay a proportion of that cost.
Are you still optimistic that HS2 can come to Liverpool in a meaningful way that will mean we don't miss out? Or in your heart of hearts, you think, well, it's not going to happen?
Liverpool will be on the high-speed rail network eventually. It's a matter of timing. Now, if we hadn't have started this campaign back in January, that would be very, very far off in the future. I think the timeline for that has accelerated rapidly. And especially when you think about HS3, this is a real kick in the teeth for the city. The idea...
HS3 being the east-west connection, in theory linking Liverpool with Hull, along the kind of M62 route, but actually, just elaborate a bit on the shortcomings of the HS3 plan that we've seen.
So in January, we put forward a 100-page response to the consultation for the phase 2 of HS2, which is the connections to Leeds and Manchester. We showed that for just an extra 20 miles track out of a 330-mile network, you could link Liverpool on an east-west axis to the main line.
At the moment, the government's thinking is, let's improve the connection between Manchester and Leeds.
Yes.
Even if it means building a tunnel under the Pennines or whatever.
Yeah.
But Liverpool has no place in that plan.
Yes. So George Osborne put forward these ideas in his thoughts about a northern powerhouse. But it's really a northern powerhouse that doesn't include Liverpool. It's a northern powerhouse of Manchester and to some extent Leeds as a partner. When we look at the current passenger usage along that line, there are twice as many passengers who travel between Manchester and Liverpool as there are between Manchester and Leeds.
So the demand is much greater.
Yes, and they pay 50% more per mile. And they travel on half as many new trains as they have between Leeds.
Some of those trains to Manchester are pretty shoddy, aren't they? And
they
still
are
pretty slow.
We only get one reasonably fast train per hour, and that has to carry very, very many commuters.
What have the decision makers, the planners, what have they got it in for? What have they got Liverpool in for?
Well, I think there's a received wisdom in the corridors of power that Liverpool is barren ground to sow your seed upon. They believe they're stuck in a 1980s view of the city. They're unaware of even the capital of culture, what happened then. They haven't been to the city. They have no interest in the city. They are they've been sold on the idea of only one city of any merit per region. So they have an idea of the kind of the northwest, and they have the idea of Yorkshire, and they believe, well, we've got Leeds in Yorkshire, we've got Manchester in the northwest, job done. Liverpool is an inconvenient truth. The fact that we've got a metropolitan area of 2.2 million people, we've got a £45 billion economy that is as great as Greater Manchester's when you look at the metro area. They're leaving a hell of a lot on the table when they decide not to connect us.
This is all terribly downbeat, but
Yep.
in the short time we have left, Andrew, paint us a picture of what Liverpool might be like if 20 Miles More and others make their case and win that case, and HS2 and HS3 do come to Liverpool.
We can be looking in a city region where that high-speed link is going to make Liverpool one of the best connected cities in the world. We're going to be well connected to London, well connected to Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, also to Scotland. We're going to have businesses relocate to Liverpool because they're going to love the quality of life, the culture, the offer that we have, the beaches that we have on our doorstep. They're going to love the way that they can get to their business meetings and get back within the same day, within a morning even. We're going to have tens of thousands more homes. We're going to have tens of thousands more jobs. We're looking at a £14 billion boost over a 60-year period to the metro area. It's a massive boost to the economy.
Well, Andrew, I'm sure train enthusiasts and Liverpool and Merseyside enthusiasts will wish you all the best in your campaign. Andrew Morris, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you very much.
That's all for this edition of Liam Fogarty Meets. We'll meet somebody else next time. Until then, goodbye.